The Peruvian sun was merciless, beating down on the ochre sands of the Nazca Desert, a place where secrets have lain undisturbed for millennia. Here, beneath the vast, cloudless sky, the earth is etched with enigmatic geoglyphs, giant lines, and shapes only visible from the heavens. For centuries, these lines have whispered riddles to the wind. But in 2017, a new enigma emerged from the dust, one that would ignite a firestorm of controversy, wonder, and fear. The Nazca Mummies. In the shadowy corners of the internet, whispers spread of a clandestine discovery mummified bodies, unearthed from a cave near Nazca, that defied all logic. They were small, humanoid, but with elongated skulls, three-fingered hands, and a pallor that seemed almost otherworldly. The first images, grainy and surreal, appeared on obscure forums and conspiracy sites, accompanied by breathless claims. "Proof of aliens! The government is hiding the truth!" For most, it was easy to dismiss as another hoax. But for a select few archaeologists, scientists, and the ever-curious, the story was too tantalizing to ignore. Dr. Valeria Ortega, a renowned bioarchaeologist from Lima, was among the first to be drawn into the mystery. She had spent her career unearthing the secrets of ancient Peru, from the Inca to the enigmatic Paracas. But nothing in her years of study had prepared her for what she saw when she was invited to examine the so-called alien mummies. The bodies were unlike anything in the archaeological record. Their skin, desiccated and gray, clung tightly to bones that seemed both familiar and impossibly strange. The hands, three long, slender fingers, were the most unsettling. They looked almost delicate, as if made for some purpose lost to time. The cave where the mummies were found was a labyrinth of stone and shadow, hidden from the world by centuries of shifting sand. The team that discovered them, a group of local treasure hunters, claimed they had stumbled upon the entrance by accident. But as Dr. Ortega examined the site, she couldn't shake the feeling that nothing about this discovery was accidental. The walls were covered in faded petroglyphs, spirals, eyes, and strange, insect-like figures. It was as if the cave itself was a message, a warning, or perhaps an invitation. As news of the discovery spread, the world's media descended on Nazca. Headlines screamed of alien bodies and government cover-ups. The Peruvian authorities, caught off guard, launched an official investigation. The mummies were taken to a secure laboratory in Lima, where a team of experts anthropologists, geneticists, forensic pathologists began the painstaking work of unraveling the truth. The first twist came with the initial X-rays. The skeletons, though bizarre, were undeniably real. There were no obvious signs of forgery, no wires, no glue, no evidence of modern tampering. The bones were ancient, their joints fused by centuries of desiccation. But the proportions were all wrong. The skulls were elongated, the eye sockets enormous, the rib cages narrow and fragile. The hands and feet, with their three long digits, seemed almost avian. The world watched, breathless, as the scientists probed deeper. DNA samples were extracted, carbon dating performed. The results were confounding. The mummies were old, very old, dating back at least 1,700 years, to the time of the Nazca culture. But the DNA was a patchwork of contradictions. Some sequences matched those of ancient Peruvians, but others were unclassifiable, as if belonging to a species unknown to science. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that bring history's greatest mysteries to life. The internet exploded. Theories multiplied like desert mirages. Some claimed the mummies were evidence of extraterrestrial visitors, the long-sought proof that humanity was not alone. Others insisted they were the result of ancient genetic engineering, a lost technology that had vanished with the Nazca. Skeptics argued it was all an elaborate hoax, a Frankenstein's monster cobbled together from human and animal bones. But the story refused to die. Each new revelation only deepened the mystery. Dr. Ortega, caught in the eye of the storm, found herself questioning everything she thought she knew. She spent sleepless nights poring over the data, haunted by the mummy's empty eyes. What if, she wondered, the truth was stranger than fiction? As the investigation continued, a new player entered the scene. Dr. Miguel Serrano, a maverick geneticist with a reputation for chasing the impossible. Serrano was convinced that the mummies were not the work of aliens, but of an ancient civilization far more advanced than history remembered. He pointed to the Nazca Lines' vast, intricate geoglyphs, evidence of a lost technology, a culture that had mastered flight, astronomy, and perhaps even bioengineering. Serrano's theory was as audacious as it was controversial. He argued that the Nazca people, inspired by visions or contact with something beyond their world, had experimented with altering the human form. The mummies, he claimed, were the result hybrids, designed for purposes lost to time. Perhaps they were priests, intermediaries between worlds, or even sacrifices to the gods. The academic world was divided. Some dismissed Serrano as a crank, but others were intrigued. The evidence, though fragmentary, was compelling. The Nazca had built vast underground aqueducts, engineered complex textiles, and created art that seemed to depict beings with elongated heads and strange hands. Was it possible, they wondered, that the mummies were a missing piece of a much larger puzzle? Meanwhile, the public fascination with the mummies reached fever pitch. Documentaries were filmed, podcasts recorded, Reddit threads exploded with speculation. The mummies became a cultural phenomenon, a symbol of humanity's eternal hunger for the unknown. But as the spotlight grew brighter, so did the shadows. The Peruvian government, wary of looters and conspiracy theorists, tightened security around the mummies. Rumors spread of secret experiments, of scientists silenced, of evidence suppressed. Dr. Ortega received anonymous threats, warning her to stop her research. The line between science and paranoia blurred, and the truth seemed to slip further away with each passing day. Then, in a twist worthy of a thriller, a new discovery shattered the stalemate. Deep in the archives of a Lima museum, a forgotten codex was found, a bundle of ancient Nazca textiles, covered in symbols that matched those in the cave. The codex told a story, woven in thread and ink, of sky beings who descended from the stars, of rituals performed to honor them, of chosen ones transformed to serve as messengers between worlds. The codex was a revelation, but also a riddle. Was it a record of real events, or a myth spun from the fevered dreams of an ancient people? Dr. Ortega, holding the fragile cloth in her hands, felt a chill run down her spine. The symbols matched those carved into the cave walls, the same spirals and eyes that had watched over the mummies for centuries. The final act of the mystery unfolded in the laboratory. Dr. Serrano, working late one night, made a breakthrough. By comparing the DNA of the mummies to that of modern Peruvians, he discovered a genetic Markarian anomaly that appeared nowhere else in the human genome. It was as if the mummies were a branch of humanity that had diverged thousands of years ago, only to vanish without a trace. The implications were staggering. Had the Nazca people encountered a lost tribe, a remnant of an ancient migration? Or had they, as the Codex suggested, been visited by beings from beyond the stars? The evidence was tantalizing, but maddeningly incomplete. In the end, the mystery of the Nazca mummies remains unsolved. The bodies, now housed in a climate-controlled vault, are the subject of ongoing study. Dr. Ortega and Dr. Serrano continue their work, driven by a sense of awe and wonder. The world watches, waiting for the next twist, the next revelation. But perhaps the true power of the Nazca Mummies lies not in the answers they provide, but in the questions they inspire. They are a reminder that history is not a closed book, but a living story, full of secrets waiting to be discovered. In the silence of the desert, beneath the gaze of the ancient lines, the mummies whisper to us still that the past is stranger and more wondrous than we can ever imagine. So, as the sun sets over the Nazca Plains, casting long shadows across the sand, one question lingers in the air. Are we alone, or are we simply the latest chapter in a story that began long before we walked the earth? If you want to keep exploring the mysteries that history tried to hide, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, because here, the past is never dead, it's just waiting to be found.